West Yorkshire Police confirming that they are now investigating the remarks made by that Tory donor to Diane Abbott. Now, Frank Hester alleged to have said in a meeting in Horsforth in Leeds in 2019 that independent MP Diane Abbott made you, quote, want to hate all black women and said that the MP should be shot. Again, alleged remarks. And these comments were unearthed by the Guardian newspaper just over a week ago on the 11th
Still
of March.
undenied.
Still, well, yes, exactly. But still alleged at this stage, but you're quite right, still undenied. We know Mr Hester's donated at least £10 million to the Conservative Party this year. There is still that unconfirmed report from Tortoise, which we won't know about until further donations are published in June, as to whether there is an extra £5 million that would bring it to 15 million in
still
total.
Undenied.
Again, still undenied. In a statement, the police force have said they're working to establish the facts to ultimately ascertain whether a crime has been committed. They've also confirmed it was the first time that the comments had been brought to their attention. So whilst this did take place in 2019, they were unaware of it until it was on the front page of The Guardian. What is also interesting, I think, James, is it's clear they want to hear from people who were directly in that meeting. West Yorkshire Police saying, as we continue our inquiry, we're keen to hear from anyone who could directly assist our investigation. I take that as wanting some first-hand reports from people who were actually there. But the politics of this, James, is very interesting. This could not happen at a worse time for Rishi Sunak. He is launching the Conservatives' local election campaign today. He's due to be on his feet at some point within the next hour. A week's a long time in politics, as we know. This, I sense, started to go away, started to die down, those calls, including from the Conservative Mayor, Andy Street, by the way, to return the money from Frank Hester. Those remarks, those calls are clearly going to be back at the forefront now. Rishi Sunak, on a day where he'd like to be talking about his local election campaign, will undoubtedly be asked about this. Of course, we've seen ministers get into a bit of a muddle on this as well, James. Kemi Badenoch was the first to describe it as racist, then earlier this week said to Nick Ferrari that actually, in fact, it was trivia, the row with regards to Frank Hester. Just lastly, important to say, no sense of guilt at this point, no suggestion of charges. This is just an investigation that is taking place. But then, of course, there will be questions, I imagine, with regards to Diane Abbott and whether she gets the Labour whip back. That was, again, starting to die down as this story went on. And then lastly, we still haven't heard from Mr Hester with regards to these comments, but we do have his statement from last week where he accepts he was rude about Diane Abbott in a private meeting several years ago, but his criticism had nothing to do with her gender nor the colour of her skin, he says.
When he said that she made him hate all black women and he wanted her to be shot.
And the MP should be shot.
Yeah. Does this have to happen if someone brings a complaint? Do we know that? Neither of us have got the legal training, have we? But because sometimes it gets reported as the police are investigating it, but there's a sort of statutory requirement to investigate things if certain types of complaints are made. Or has there been a threshold that West Yorkshire Police decide has been crossed, an investigatory threshold?
Well, I know that, so this was initially referred to the specialist, to one of the specialist units of the Metropolitan Police who were initially dealing with this. I'm not entirely sure as to who's brought this complaint, whether there is that threshold, but I know that it's come about as a result of that Metropolitan Police investigation as well. So they're not the first force to look into this, but probably the most significant development we've had so far.
And as you say, it could not have come at a worse time for Rishi Sunak.